All right, today we're doing a gestational age assessment on this baby. I do have the chart here. I feel like as midwives, we don't do a detailed gestational Ballard score typically on our infants because they are all typically born within normal term. So I feel like if a midwife was doing this in the NICU day in and day out, that would be one thing. So they wouldn't need necessarily a chart in front of them. But I think if for most midwives, if they had a baby born and they were concerned about the gestational of the baby because the client was 37 weeks but baby looked small, they definitely want to make sure they have a chart available, something like this, doesn't have to be this, but something like this available, and have an assistant actually mark off the score to make sure that they're getting an accurate assessment. So for the new Ballard score, we start with the neuromuscular, and you're looking for how baby is lying. This is something that in a normal newborn exam is usually fairly natural. You would notice that if baby, like this baby's not, this baby's got a weird bottom, but you would notice if baby didn't have proper tone. So typically a very prenatal baby is going to just lie flat, and one that is toned is going to bring its legs up. Their arms are going to stay well flexed, and they're going to be very reactionary to when they're unbundled and when they're rebundled and when they're manipulated during the newborn exam. So after assessing tone, you're going to give a score with a Ballard score anywhere from a -1 all the way to a 4, and have your assistant write down what you feel your newborn is looking like. So for this little guy, with just laying like here, I would say this is probably a 2 because of obviously our hands aren't up, the legs aren't really curling up like most babies. Next thing is to look at the wrist, and this is something I've never personally done on just a full term baby, but apparently on term babies you can bend their wrist all the way down. This baby, the wrist is obviously unbendable, so strictly speaking, this baby would definitely be a -1 and be a very premature baby with this type of flexibility. But a term baby, their wrist is quite flexible. The next sign would be, if for myself, I like to do things kind of in an organized manner, I would most likely move to either checking recoil at this point or doing the scarf sign. And the scarf sign is checking to see how far across the body the elbow can be drawn. For a very premature baby, it's going to go all the way. For a less mature baby, that baby is going to start to turn with you before that elbow crosses the body, and it will be just below. The hand should end up just below here when you're pulling it. Looking for recoil, again, term babies are going to tend to put their hands up. Their moro should be well intact, so they should be startling quickly. One of the things that is pointed out, though, is if you're manipulating those arms a lot, you might not see good recoil because they may eventually just relax their arms down. Or if baby's been bundled well with the arms down, they might relax down. Most babies, if they've been sitting in their term, their hands are up, and when you pull the hand down, the arm will pop back up. The less recoil you see, the less mature the infant, the lower the score that you're going to have. For most term babies, we just skip to a hip exam, but if we're looking at gestational age, we would take the leg here and we want to see how the hamstrings are stretching. Term babies aren't going to stretch easily like this, whereas preterm babies are going to just stretch right on up. There is some caution, be careful with those hamstrings because you don't want to force something that's not going up. And you want to have your hand here so that you can actually feel the tension so that you can see where that is starting to flex. The other one is this hip flexor, to see how babies' legs flex. Most babies, when you flex this up to the side, the foot is going to follow, and we're going to end up right here in the femoral crease with the foot. After that, you're going to be looking at more of the appearance. This is something that I find that I do with most of my babies during the newborn exam. We're going to look at the skin. Is the skin peeling? Is it dry? Is it very, very soft and almost feels like friable? That's a very premature baby. But also, if you see very dry skin, lots of peeling, you're looking at a post-term baby who's past 41 weeks, and even 42. Then after that, looking at lanugo. what kind of hair. If there's absolutely no hair, we have a very preterm baby. If there's a lot of hair, then conversely, especially in the midwifery model where our clients are typically 37 weeks or greater, if you see a lot of hair, you might suspect that the baby is closer to 36 weeks because that hair should start to reduce. Most of the babies that we see are going to have hair on their shoulders and back, and that will be about the only place where they have hair. Vernix is another thing that we often see. Earlier babies tend to have more vernix, and then more post-mature babies will have less vernix. Babies who are very post-mature, the vernix will be completely gone, the skin will be dry, and you might even see some rash in the skin from the lack of the protective oily coating. Most babies, you'll find a lot of vernix in creases around the neck and the leg creases. Another thing that is always checked is our plantar surfaces. While checking your Babinski and your plantar reflexes, it's very easy to quickly check how many creases are or how much of the foot is creased. A very smooth foot, like this one, is a very premature foot. Our babies are typically 2/3 or fully creased because they are at term. And this wasn't mentioned in the videos, but in my training, we always checked fingernail and toenail length. Long nails typically indicated a more post-mature baby. So whilst checking those plantar surfaces, it's always nice to check the toes, checking those fingers and seeing where we're at as far as the toenails go. Ear cartilage, eyes and ear cartilage. I've not had such a premature baby that the eyes are fused. Most of our babies have eyes that are open and seeing well and looking both directions. But ear cartilage, we're looking for well set and firm cartilage that pops right back and recoils really nicely. When that's really soft or underdeveloped, then we would suspect prematurity and give a lower score on this Ballard score. Finally, the final piece in the Ballard is looking at genitalia. And in boys, we're looking for how the scrotum and the penis looks. Primarily the scrotum, we're looking for in a mature baby, our testicles are descended and the scrotum has rugae. But it can be a very normal variation of a term baby for the testicles not to be fully descended, or one to be descended and the other one is not. I always ask clients to follow up and have me examine that later up in my bush area. In the U.S., I would typically recommend, to mention it to the pediatrician to follow up on that. For little girls, we're looking at how the labia majora, labia minora, and the clitoris are. If there is very little labia and just clitoris, we have a very premature baby. Babies who are at term will have a fairly normal looking labia majora that covers everything, and it can be separated and you can see that all the little bits and pieces are there. So that is how to do a gestational age assessment. Again, if I was genuinely concerned that I had a premature baby, I would want to have an assistant score these things as I went through and just assisting me, because it's not something we're going to do because we're not in the NICU day in and day out. And our babies are scoring between 35 and 40 on almost all of this, almost all the time. And thankfully, we don't have to deal with those sick newborns all the time. And that's it.